Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before looking at my Game Week 29 score, I'd like to say this video has very kindly been sponsored by Spitch. Put your fantasy management skills to the test every single match day, compete against others and win real prizes. If you haven't tried the Spitch app before, then this weekend is the perfect time to do so, with some very special prizes up for grabs in their Premier League competitions made for Game Weeks 30 and 31. It's completely free to download and enter, so download the app now using the link in the description box below. Get registered and start building your perfect 11 for Game Week 30. It was a full house of defensive returns in Game Week 29, with Arsenal fortunately managing a clean sheet in their opening game against Leicester. Lacazette also stuck away a penalty in that 2-0 win. I didn't expect any of them to get much from their second fixture against Liverpool, so that double clean sheet against the Foxes was very welcomed. A big boost for a game week that was generally below par elsewhere. New signing Matt Doherty thankfully played both games of his double and managed the one clean sheet against Brighton, so not a bad start, but unfortunately bringing him in meant benching Connor Cody, who then racked up a 14-pointer on my bench. Ouch. I also weighed up a -4 last week to get Robertson instead of Doherty, who rather predictably produced a superb 18-point haul. That one was definitely hard to take, but Doherty still does have one extra fixture in Game Week 30 to hopefully soften that blow a bit. In general, I'd say my fairly patient and hit-averse playstyle has served me well so far this season, but this was one of the game weeks where a bit of aggression would have certainly served me better. One of the other -4s I looked at last week was Son and Jimenez going out as a way to bring in the in-form Harry Kane, with teammate Kulusevski therefore replacing Son. The Spurs pair scored a huge 25 points between them in Game Week 29, while Son and Jimenez frustratingly blanked in all 3 games. A big swing in points. And I'm now faced with the same decision once again this week, whether to get rid of Son for his teammate Kulusevski as a way to fund a move to Harry Kane. Another notable moment of Game Week 29 was me activating the triple captaincy chip on Mo Salah, and in recent game weeks I've had a very poor run of captaincy choices. Unfortunately, Salah picked up an injury in his first game against Brighton, and therefore only made the bench against Arsenal, so despite the double game week he only got to play just over 90 minutes. Based on that, I do feel a bit hard done by on this decision, considering that Mo Salah has been virtually indestructible with injuries over the years. He did, however, at least score a penalty, so 10 points is certainly no disaster, but personally, anything below 15 points with the triple captain always feels a bit of a fail. So, for Game Week 29, my team ended on a score of 90. On paper, a seemingly good game week, but sadly not enough to continue my streak of green arrows, and considering I had my triple captainship in play, a big disappointment to drop in the rankings. I'm still up from my ranking of 24k in my previous video, but I started Game Week 29 at 17k, so it's a small 2,000 place drop. There were lots of things to be disappointed in last game week. The triple captaincy failure, the -4s for Kane or Robertson all backfiring, and not to mention the 31 points that were stuck on my bench. But despite all that, I still find myself just inside the top 20k, a very pleasing position for me. And the goal now for the remaining 9 game weeks is to simply do my best to stay there. With no chips remaining now, that's not going to be easy. But as things stand, I'm still at least in the hunt for a personal best FPL finish, so all I can do is move on from this frustrating game week and continue looking ahead. Let's move on to the very small blank Game Week 30 now, and look at my current team lineup as well as discussing some potential transfer moves. Also, if you do enjoy the content here at FPL TV, then be sure to leave a like and most importantly get subscribed. You can also hit the notification bell so you always know when a new video goes live. When I wildcarded back in Game Week 26, one part of that long-term plan was to always be able to manoeuvre this tricky blank Game Week 30 without the need of a chip. And with thanks to lots of planning that went into that wildcard, the squad does look in decent shape to get me through it. There's only 4 fixtures and therefore 8 teams featuring in this small blank Game Week 30, and initially I was heading into it with a full starting 11, even before transfers, so that would have been ideal. The plan then was to have the luxury option of rolling a free transfer this game week, and then potentially taking 2 free transfers into Game Week 31. Frustratingly though, Luca Digne has since picked up a hamstring injury in his previous fixture, almost certainly ruling him out for this game against Arsenal, now leaving me with just 10 before transfers. Considering the circumstances, that's still a very good position to be in, but I really didn't want to make a defensive transfer this week, especially with there not being many teams to choose from, and with me still weighing up this -4 of selling Son and Jimenez for Kane and Kulusevski. As for Luca Digne, I of course wish him a very healthy and speedy recovery. But bloody hell, Digne. In fantasy terms, he'll surely go down as one of the most frustrating FPL assets over the years, a trap I always seem to fall into. In terms of replacing Luca Digne, if I were to transfer him out this week, then I'm basically searching for a player that has a fixture in Game Week 30, but then will also come in handy for the longer term as well. There isn't many of them, but transferring out Luca Digne could also be a money-saving exercise. And that's why both Leicester's Amati and West Ham's Ben Johnson do come into consideration this week. Notably, both these players are an ultra-budget 3.9 million, so not only would they hopefully provide me with an extra player for Game Week 30, but they'd also then be cheap enough to bench in future game weeks and free up a lot of cash to use elsewhere. If Leicester's Amati was guaranteed to play every game for Leicester, then he'd be a no-brainer to bring in, especially because the Foxes still have plenty of games in hand and therefore an abundance of double game weeks before the season ends. At 3.9 million, he'd be an extremely handy budget option, but with Leicester still having interest in the Europa Conference League, as well as now having Wesley Fofana potentially back from injury, that does have me worried for Amati's minutes longer term. It still wouldn't be the end of the world if he did lose his place, because ultimately at 3.9 million he can just be a bench-warming enabler anyway. But at the same time, I've got no wildcard or chips left now, and therefore I've got to be really careful with my transfers going forward. West Ham's Johnson could also be another useful option, and with Soufal out injured, could arguably be more secure of minutes than Amati. Granted, he may not boast lots of games in hand, so no double game weeks coming up for West Ham, but he does however have a few decent single game week fixtures in the next few weeks, including a nice home fixture against Burnley in Game Week 33. Depending on FA Cup results, Game Week 33 could end up being a blank game week for the likes of Leeds, Wolves and Villa, therefore Johnson at home to Burnley that week could come in very handy. So that's some of my budget enabler considerations, who, providing they start, would also bring me to a full 11 for Game Week 30. However, there's also every chance I'll simply do nothing this week and just roll on with 10 men. By saving a free transfer this week, it would then allow me to replace Luca Digne from a big selection of players in Game Week 31 instead, with the likes of Joel Matip firmly on the radar, or potentially upgrading him to the likes of Cancelo, Andy Robertson, etc. Saving a free transfer this week would also provide me with a bit of flexibility in Game Week 31, and by that point, we'll then know the results of the FA Cup and therefore who blanks in Game Week 33, giving us a better picture of what's to come. For the captaincy in Game Week 30, this will play a significant part in the success of my game week. As mentioned, my squad in general is pretty well set for this blank game week, but notably what it doesn't have is Harry Kane. And given his form, he will almost certainly be the highest captained player of the game week by some way. A big concern. With no Harry Kane in my side currently, that means I'll likely be giving the armband to Son Heung-min instead. So the success of my game week, and also my season, could come down to a big battle between the Spurs pair this week. And I have to say that currently, I do feel I'm on the wrong side of this grudge match. In addition to a small drop in form, the concern for Son this week is that lately Conte has started subbing him off early, whereas Kane is almost certainly locked to play the full 90. If I do decide to bring in Harry Kane for a -4 this week, then it's 100% certain I'd give the armband to him. However, if I decide to stick with Son for now, then in my current squad, reluctantly I think I'll still have to opt for him, with Coutinho perhaps an outside shout at home to Arsenal. Taking that -4 to bring Kane in would also mean selling Jimenez before a home fixture against Leeds. A difficult move. So that's everything that I'm weighing up with regards to my team in Game Week 30. As always, whatever I decide, I'll post my final team with transfers and captaincy choice over on Twitter shortly before the Game Week deadline. Good luck to you all for Game Week 30, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon. Thanks again as well to Spitch for sponsoring this video, and be sure to give it a try using the link in the description box below.